I've been working on the computer for a really long time. In elementary school, I remember playing like games on the computer and sneaking on extra time, and then in high school, I taught myself Photoshop on the computer, and in college, I got really interested by the idea of the computer making art by itself. I thought that was really interesting, and I wanted to look into it. So I found a bunch of programs that were made in like the 90s, and they were mostly junk, you know, that no one ever saw come to the light of day. But I found this one program that really spoke to me, and it's called Mandelbrot 3D. So this program is based off the Mandelbrot set, which is a it's a complex of numbers. It's pretty high level mathematics, so I'm not really going to get into it. But this specific 3D representation, which this is not a great example, so I'll just show you some of my other things. But so the 3D representation of the Mandelbrot set was discovered in 2009, and that's what this program primarily uses to make all of these different shapes. So the program utilizes different sets of algorithms or parameters that I'll essentially mix them together, and then I'll add colors and shadows, highlights, reflections, depth, all that kind of stuff. And then I also have the ability with the program to mutate my art, which will give it the ability to change randomly, or I can basically control the things that are mutating. So it's kind of controlled randomness or controlled chaos. And after doing that process thousands of times, or however long it takes, then I'll get all of these very different pieces that are essentially based off of the same starting point. So how I usually go through my process is I'll turn on my computer, I'll open up an old file that I worked on, and then I'll mutate it, and I'll see, it gives me, I'll show you the mutations. So when I mutate something, I have all these sliders, and I know what they mean, but they're a little confusing. So sometimes they don't do much, as you can see with like this one, looks pretty much the same, and sometimes they look way different, like this one's completely covered. So I'll pick one of these mutations, and it doesn't really matter which one, and I'll send it to the main program, and then I'll render it. This is what I spend most of my time doing, is waiting for the computer to finish showing me this. So once, this doesn't even need to be finished, but I can start changing the colors, and I can change all these randomly, like with this button, or I can do them individually, but I really appreciate the element of randomness that this program comes with, and I embrace it. So now I'll show you some of my pieces that I sold. All right. So as you can see, I made a bunch of different styles of things, and these will finish loading in a second. So I make all these things for myself, and I don't know really what's going to resonate with people. I just make the things that I think are cool, interesting colors and shapes, and I go for something thought-provoking, or just something I feel is nice to look at. And these are my pieces so far that people have been interested in enough to purchase and to bring into their homes. And you can see there's like a bunch of different stuff on here. No one is going for a specific style. I haven't been able to pinpoint really what people are liking yet. And I've just still been making so many different things. So in total, I've probably made about 15,000 pieces with the program. So you can see it doesn't take me like that long to make something. The longest it'll take me is probably 3 days to render something big, and the shortest it'll take me is just a minute or two. So I've been doing this for like 3 years now, and I've made a whole bunch of pieces, and it's crazy to see how much different they can become, because they're all based off the same program and the same code and the same shapes essentially. So now I'll show you how, from scratch, how I make something.
I apologize, but could you tell me the name of the program again?
It's called Mandelbulb 3D.
Mandelbulb?
Yeah, bulb. And it's a free program. All the stuff I use to create my art is free, and I also make animations out of my artwork after I'm done with them to bring them a step further. And I use apps on my phone to make the animations. I did pay $5 for the premium version of the app, but anyone can download it for free. And I would love to see if you ever make something, if you email it to me and share it with me. My information's on my business card. That would be awesome. So this shape is the Mandelbrot set, and this is a 2D representation. So then we can calculate 3D, and we'll bring it into the 3D form. And from here, I like to work in squares, so I will change my size. And then this is the default shape that comes with the program. And there are also a bunch of different formulas. So there's a whole bunch of formulas. Each one of these has a drop down of formulas, and they can only be mixed in certain ways without the program breaking. The program is pretty fickle. So when I first downloaded it, it was definitely trial and error. Some of the instructions are in German, and like the navigation didn't work how I expected it to. There was a lot of learning how things worked just after pressing them, seeing what happened. And that's how I learn all my programs. Photoshop was the same thing. I didn't follow any tutorials. I just did stuff the hard way, and then later out, like, found out there was a way to just press a button to get the same effect. So we'll change the colors, and we'll see what we get. And I can move all kinds of things. Let's go with this purple white, and then I will change. Ambiance is kind of the vibrancy of the lighting in the object in this program, and then there's depth, which is the background. This one doesn't show well how the depth affects it because we're zoomed out all the way. And then there's dynamic fog, which gives it kind of a stroke, but it's a strong shadow that goes into like all the pores of the object. It's more than a stroke that would surround the object entirely. And then, and this is fog offset, so this is the lighting part of the background, and then this is the shadows part of the background. So we have a bunch of different sliders for all kinds of parts. And we can change all of these things too. It's pretty crazy. Let me change to a color that's not the same. And then I'll add some different formulas, and we'll see. This one's called Bulbox, and we'll see what Bulbox looks like. Looks like nothing. So I'll mutate it, and we'll see what we get, and it'll be something probably. So this has a big grainy portion in the middle. That's my biggest fight with the program is that it makes a bunch of graininess all over the images. And I have a couple ways I can combat that. They don't always work, but let's see what we can do. So I'll go into my calculation tab. All of these are, there are a whole bunch of tabs that you can change, a lot of settings. I'm not familiar with all of them, but I just try them out and see what they do. So this one I know will increase the graininess if the number is bigger and decrease the graininess if the number is smaller. So let's see what kind of difference it makes. It looks way better. It's a little blown out, but that's a different issue. So we can re-attack the lighting. And then at this point, or really any point, I could save it and keep going. And there's no like start and stop point for when I'm making my art the way that a canvas would be. So I'm always, in one session, I'd say the shortest burst of images I'll make is probably 30. And if I'm working for a couple hours, I can make a couple hundred. So that's pretty much my pace that I keep. And I've also made a couple animations in this program. The reason that I don't like to animate in here is because it has to render each frame individually, and then it pieces them all together. So you can see this is one frame, and if you wanted an animation, it would be like hundreds of these. So it would just take days or weeks. It depends on the power of your computer and the size, of course, that you're rendering at, but it's a very time-consuming process.
How large are your files, each one?
They're pretty small, so I'll show you. Let me organize by size, and we can see that. Oh, it's organized by size. Okay, so the biggest one is this one. Which I like that one. Let me put it on the side. And it is 38 minutes. So pretty small in comparison. I'd say it's like the same as a regular image size, and this one is my biggest one. So a really small one will only be, I don't know, 1 or 2 megs. All of my files total are only like 9 gigs, which isn't small, but you know, a movie's 2 gigs, so it's manageable. And I mean, this is kind of how I spend my days after work. I just do this over and over and get a whole bunch of different shapes, and the ones I'm really happy with, I'll animate them and I'll print them and I'll show them to other people, and hopefully they like them too.
What's the biggest output or print you've made of these?
The biggest print so far, my biggest print is actually that blanket that's on the table.
Oh.
I'm using it as a tablecloth right now, but it's 40 by 60, and that's my biggest thing so far.
And you made it out of that program?
Yeah, so I bought a Groupon for custom print blanket that was supposed to be for like a picture of a couple or a picture of your dog, and I just used it for my artwork.
Can you show us one of the animations?
So for the animations, I'll show you.
That wasn't a
Hey
yes.
Kelly, and we
Who is this kid? Alright, so the animations, usually they loop when they're on Instagram, but this is an animation I made a couple days ago, and my favorite part is about to come up. That's the part I like.
That's cool.
So what, do you have a goal for these?
No, I have no goal for anything. I just make it because I like to.
Have you ever
Nothing
thought
wrong
of,
with that.
adding like sound to it?
Yes, all the time. But I don't make music. I mean, I've made a little bit of music, but this is what I do. So I have a friend who makes music, but we're not like on partner terms of him making me all these 10, 20-second clips. So
Well, I wasn't thinking like songs, but
I
more
was. That's the thing. I guess my bar is higher than like stock music. So
Oh no, not even music. I was thinking like sounds.
Oh, sounds.
Yeah.
No, I haven't thought
Yeah,
about
like
just sounds.
ambient noises and stuff like that.
Well, that seems easier.
You
So
could
in the program in Botto,
Okay.
we actually have sounds and stuff.
like
Alright.
I'm thinking like
Well, I thought
you know, like
one of the things that I thought was interesting is somebody contacted Josh and they bought several of his animations because they like to use them as screensaver, but they bought a frame that you put on the wall, so it got like his moving art on the wall full time, which is really cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this guy's goal was to buy like a large digital picture frame and put it on his wall and have it constantly looping.
That would be like a goal that I was hoping, or even a big installation where you walk
Yeah,
into a
I
room
would love
of
to. I mean,
these.
when I walk by a large store that has like a huge LED sign with sales on it, I think about if I had one of those for my artwork, that would be awesome.
Have you ever just projected them on a wall? What-
No, I don't have a projector, but that's something I would like to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why we're
Yeah, I
asking.
mean, I'm always looking for avenues to get my stuff out there. And I really love the kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
And the spiral. So I'd say like half my animations, maybe a third of them are going to be spinning and spiral-like, and yeah, just the kaleidoscope I think is beautiful.
I would agree.
Just one last one, and then we'll get back to making stuff. Alright, so I'll just start off by picking, you can have up to 6
Hi, are you here
formulas
for the
at
artist
once.
talk? Great.
So I'll start off, I'll pick
Hey, how are
3
you?
formulas, but I want to pick them all from this first category.
Yeah.
If I pick
Come sit
one
with me, what?
here, I know that these
Yeah, I'll move over.
these only mix with themselves.
So you can sit together.
Otherwise, I'm just trash. So then we'll, oh, I didn't want to do that. Let me just add these again. And then we'll see what we get. If it's anything, it's pretty much the same as before, so I'll just go into the mutation. And then I'll only change this one, which will add and remove whole algorithms. So usually if I want something similar to the shape I was making before using the same program, the same algorithms, then I'll only change this one. Or if I want maybe, well, these two are more unpredictable, I'd say. This one kind of changes a lot of things all at once, or it'll change nothing. It depends on if the Julie set is enabled. And then iteration count is how many of the thing there will be in total. So if you're zoomed in, you won't really tell that the iterations change, but if you're zoomed out, you can tell. So I'll pick one of these, and we'll see how it renders, and then I'll go into the lighting effects. Now, these are all different options for changing specifically colors. So, so this, you can see made a change already, and this one makes a different change. And you can also like do all of them. So there's a whole bunch of different ways. And this, this button I use frequently when I'm at home, but on this computer I don't have my other pictures saved. So what this one does is it'll take the colors from a source image, and you can use any image. So the way that I got my source images, or I made a bunch of pieces on this program, and then I fed them into, it's called a Google Deep Dream Generator. So it's kind of a trippy Google program. It's an AI that can like, it adds eyes and spirals and kind of stuff like that to your images. But what I was using it for is you can mix any image with like a famous piece of work or any other image, and it'll like take one style and apply it to this image. So it would still look like my picture, but it would be in the style of like, say I put frosty wasteland, then it would look like snow instead of whatever this looks like. So I used a whole bunch of different versions of those, a couple hundred, and that's how I get all my different colors for my pieces. And there's just so many options when it comes to colors. I wish I could show you this. So like all of these sliders would make a huge difference, but I don't think there's any loaded in by default, so I can't show you right now. And then these are for adding lighting. So I like to add positional lighting, and these look like little balls of light, and then I can move them around. See where they go.
Oh, yeah.
And they really, they affect the lighting of the whole piece. And I can change how strong they are, and they have a whole lot of settings. So you can see now the ball is there, but the shadow, or the light itself is much more dull, and now it's brighter, and I can make the actual light itself bigger and brighter, and I can bring it forward, and I can move it away, and there's a lot of options for lighting, and I always use this visible ball for, I don't know why, I just don't really like these other ones. And I like this one, it looks like the sun to me. It looks pretty good in most colors, but sometimes like the size will change drastically when you change the colors, so that's something you need to be wary of. And now this looks pretty cool, so let's mutate it and see what we get. But all of these are disabled, so we'll max them out, and we'll even max these out, the strength, we're going all in.
It's a good t-shirt.
And when you mutate, all of your orbs of light will stay in the same spots, unless you use navigation. So navigation is something I haven't even showed you yet, so we'll do that now. And this is your navigation window. From here, you can do things like zoom out, you can look to the left and right. This one is kind of a circle, so you can't see the navigation as well as if it was a different shape. But I'll just pull this back into the main program and render it again, and we'll see how it looks.
So navigation is adjusting basically your camera's perspective if that was 3D object.
There's something
Like
else we
our
can do with
side
navigation
view.
also. So the other big thing with navigation is actually being able to change the parameters of the formulas. So all of these sliders have a direct impact on the shape, and we can do things like increase basically the amount of how much that algorithm is affecting it. So this number represents how many times it's applied to the shape. Down from there. So it'll take the first one, and that's going to be your base shape, and then the second formula will kind of change the base shape, accent into the second formula, and so on. And none of these seem to be working very well together because they're all kind of separate. So you need to get lucky, and you need to find something that affects it. What I'll do is I'll mutate, and then I'll remove all the algorithms that do nothing because they're just excess and they slow the program down. So then I'll replace them with something else, and we'll see what happens. So the rendering time's a little bit slower than my computer at home, but this is realistic. This is the waiting time of working digitally. For me, the quickest part is actually creating the piece, and the slowest part is like waiting to see it. So it's much different than a traditional painting where I'd say it's exactly the opposite of spending months or years even creating the piece. And well, sometimes then you forget to look at it after that. So you can see that the background is very black, so I will change these. And let's do something bright and happy.
Okay.
And then I'll change the colors. And this bright blue that's left is because of this green light that we have. And now it's red. So there's a whole bunch of different options for every, really, there's very multifaceted program, and I've just really been interested with how many different things I can create with this. So I've been working with it for around 3 years, as I've said, and I do run into the same shapes every once in a while. Like, I'm starting to become familiar with them, whereas before it was like, wow, all these things are brand new, and like, math is beautiful, and I've never seen shapes like this, and now I'm starting to become more familiar with them, and even if I'm online, sometimes I'll see someone else who I recognize as using the program, and before I started, it was like totally foreign to me. So now I feel like I'm more in the scene of fractals and Mandelbrot set, or whatever that means. So there's a lot of things I don't know about the program still, of course. There's the people who made the program that are masters at it, and there's people who have been using it for over 10 years or longer. So I see people who have mastery over the program can like put whatever shapes they want in it, and they'll have like human forms even and stuff like that, but I'm not there yet. We'll make it there someday. But I mean, overall, I'm really, I always like this guy. It reminds me like an old man. So I feel like I've come really far in the last couple of years. I didn't make any of this stuff to sell. I always made it for myself, and I just made it for fun. And then and then I joined my dad's art business, and we started trying to take it more seriously and get it off the ground, and take it from a hobby level to maybe work level in the future. So, I mean, that's really what I would love to do, is travel and do art shows and share my stuff with people instead of just looking at it alone most of the time in my room. You know, that's how it is. So life as an artist. So, does anyone have any questions?
You didn't mention any of your metal stuff. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. So let me grab some of my metal pieces. I've been printing on a couple different mediums to see how they go. And metal I was very excited about because it's shiny. So, so you can see in certain angles it works really well. I'll pass these around. There's a bunch of them. So
How are you printing on them?
I printed them. I bought a Groupon, which I wouldn't recommend because they're lower quality than I would have liked.
So you're not physically printing them?
I did not physically print them myself, but I'm pretty happy with how they came out. It's always really great for me to get a piece off of the computer and into my hands, because, I mean, mostly it's just on a screen. And it looks different when you can hold it and touch it and move it around.
So did you make these to frame them, or did you make them to?
Right now I just
Make
have a couple of them
tile
like
them?
sitting on, they're kind of perched on top of like other frames and just leaning on the wall.
I thought we
They don't
could-
have a solid plan.
Like
but
trading cards.
I like them. I could have
Okay.
bought like backs with them, but it would have made them like 3 times more expensive.
Looks like the inside of my head.
It's an ear shot.
I like this. Look at that.
You show him the ones that have the beads in them too. That was pretty
Okay.
cool.
So he doesn't take it artist or entrepreneur with that, right?
Yeah, he's getting there.
So this
I
is
mean,
my,
I saw that you
my
clicked
idea
that
for
right there.
Valentine's Day, my Valentine's
you.
Day special. I made this piece with obviously a large heart in it. Well, it's a heart. My mom loves hearts, so that's why it stood out to me. I made it for her. And then she loved it so much that she told me I should make a couple more. And I added these beads that I really like, how it's like impermanent and free flowing, and you can, I don't know, move it however you want. Not that you would want like all the beads on this side, but it's possible. And I painted the frames myself, and yeah, I mean these are more special to me because a little more work went into them. But, yeah.
I think so.
All right, so thank you everyone very much for coming and listening to my speech, and I'm really happy about it. I think it went well. It was my first time speaking in front of a crowd of people about my art, and it'll only go up from here. So thank you again.
Oh, yay!
You did it.
Where are you going to be next?
So yeah,
Virtual.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting a
That was
virtual
gonna be my
reality
next
headset.
question.
And then I would start to make my art in a virtual landscape, which I've been doing some research. Very cool. I'm excited for that. I don't know that much about it yet, but I think by this time next year I'll definitely have some stuff to show you.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
You have any